Welcome, everyone, to Doing Business with a Servant's Heart. This is your podcast host, Steve Ramona, and I've got a very interesting and I'm excited to share guest today. He's already told me a story in the green that's going to blow you away. I think we're going to bring this story up that ties to what he does, but he's a true servant because he deals with money and expenses, and I'm going to hire him when I get my big company because I don't want to deal with that stuff. John, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Steve. It's great to be on.
So I know what you do. We'll get more into that. But what steered you into launching your own company, your own business? Because not easy.
Yeah, so that has been a lifelong pursuit for me. And I years ago became pretty much unemployable and have started several companies over the years. And I think I've actually worked for a traditional job company for about a year, and my whole career, as you might imagine, has been a while. I'm not a spring chicken.
Yeah, I know that feeling. What were some of your fears of launching your own company?
I would say it's always about being able to connect with customers and you grow revenue and bring in the right team, all the different things that happen with the business. And it's hugely motivating. It's a lot of fun, real adrenaline rush initially. I'm sure I'm not saying anything that's a newsflash here, but that's what it was to me. And I've had a lot of fun doing it over the years.
And that's great. And that leads to, this is a franchise like we talked about before the show started. That just adds another element of complexity.
Sure.
How's that been?
Yeah, so I actually came into this franchise after having either launched or acquired over 10 companies over my career. So those were really where he had to invent the whole thing from the ground up with at least the startups. And with the franchise, I thought, this will be so much easier because it's already been done. But it actually ended up being, because of the complexity of this line of work, it ended up being just very, very interesting to me. I did have a history prior to the work I do now of getting a business to a certain point, assuming it succeeded. They did not all, and then getting bored. And I've never become bored with this line of work, so it's really been fun.
Yeah, that's great and interesting. You work with startups. There's got to be a difference working with a startup than starting your own company by yourself, correct?
You bet. It absolutely is. Yeah.
What are those differences, you think?
I would say, I actually kind of categorize it, if it's okay, as a startup or acquiring a business. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's very fair.
Yeah. So with the startup, you've seen some neat thing, something in the marketplace where you could maybe improve upon what others are doing in the marketplace, right? And I'm not a big innovator. I'm more of a copycat with minor tweaks. I think would be kind of a fair. Others would probably say that's fair. So where if you're going to acquire a business, and these are smaller companies, you're acquiring it because you think you can do something differently, I think, to then improve the business and have a greater impact on, your investors, the employees, etc. And so that's kind of my perception of the two. Acquiring is probably a little easier than a startup in my world, but and then with the line of work I do now, it is sort of like an acquisition, buying a license and then developing it, and a lot of the tools already in place. But again, it's been very complex and very interesting.
I like that because my dad told me when I was young, he was a contractor, Steve, never recreate the wheel.
Yeah.
Probably hundreds of times he told me that. I've said this on the show before. I love that you said that Because some people think it's a cheating. To me, it's no. He would say, you're not cheating. You're just taking somebody's great idea and making it, like you said, tweaking it a little bit and making it better.
Right.
So you've led companies, and I love that. I love leaders of companies. How important is it to serve your employees in these companies?
Well, over the years, early in my career, I just did not get that piece. So over the years, I've learned that the employees are, particularly nowadays, I think they may not be in certain industries everything, but they are central to any business I can think of, certainly any business that I touch. It's all about the employees. It's all about, creating an environment where everybody is generally going in the same direction, and then gleaning their ideas, their enthusiasm, their excitement. And it's not to say every day at work is going to be highly exciting, right? It's still work, but that whole thing of having people that are really, they like what they're doing, they like the people they're working with, and they're excited about the future, I think is really how I view it now, and that definitely was not always the case.
I love your transparency when you said earlier you didn't know this, and
Yeah.
now you do. Did you see you're more successful when you served your employees and respected them and loyal and all that great stuff?
Absolutely. And early on in my career, actually in my 20s, I had started a business in Arizona. And at that age, and with the growth that we had with this business, it just took over my whole life, right? And it ended up with over 200 employees, and had all the it had all the issues of somebody who was trying to lead that company that really didn't understand the importance of the employees. And I did a poor job of doing what I just rattled off that I really enjoy about working with the team. And that really ended up being a real, I really fell short with that opportunity.
Experience is a great teacher, and you're just lived it.
Yes, definitely.
What advice would you give a listener that's listening that wants to do a startup or jump into a franchise or be a solopreneur? What's some a piece of advice you could give them?
Yeah, that's a great question, Steve. I would say, number one, don't study it to death. Um, whatever it is that you're trying to do, lay it out on paper and or on your computer digitally, of course, would probably be the more appropriate thing to say. And but put your idea out there, and then just keep refining it, and then put the thing together, and if it feels right, just do it. And particularly if you're younger, it's that your risk factor can be lower. I realize that's not always the case, but the time to do it is, if you can, when you're younger. But if you have the concept, the other thing is bring in other people that are knowledgeable in the industry that you're planning on going into. Learn their lessons. People are always happy to share, that have been in industry, and they will tell you two or three nuggets, each one of them, that'll be highly valuable.
That's great. Now you got me excited to start my own business, because you make it sound simple. I know it's not, but I think two things is a mentor and making the decision. You said it so well, John. Just make a decision and do it, and deal with the repercussions later. People
Right.
like listen to me when I say that. I says indecisiveness is worse than making a wrong decision, right?
Oh gosh, it's so true. It yeah, I have nothing to add, but yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I do want to pivot here a little bit, because you told me a story. Wasn't sure I'm going to bring it on the show, but it's coming to my head. It's an incredible story, and it brands you. Tell us a story about sailing and what you did and how you branded that.
Yeah, and I'll actually tie it into what we were just talking about. So, but the story generally is that I owned a business at the time. Our kids were, they were young kids, 12 to 15. And I had just sold the business. And my wife and I had read an article in a sailing magazine of a couple that had done a trip with their young kids, sailed across the Atlantic from southern Florida, and then gone to Europe, and then traveled Europe, and then sailed home. And they did it in exactly 1 year. And we both thought that was so cool. Well, we had just sold our business, and I can remember my wife and I saying, "God, this would be such great timing." And so we just plain did it, and we had the absolute time of our life doing that trip. Impossible to forget so much of that trip. But it was interesting, and I'll tie this back to starting a business because it was a big challenge for me. Um, and I can remember getting back to Fort Lauderdale and hauling our boat out. And I was working on the bottom of the boat to get it ready to sell because we were done with our trip. And there was a guy next to me, had a boat, and he was asking about the trip. And he said, and he had a boat, it would have been perfect to do such a trip. And I can so remember him saying, "Hell, I just don't know. Here he has a gorgeous boat, and he's painting the bottom too." And he says, "I just don't understand how you did it." And it was just such an interesting thing. Here's a guy with the perfect boat. I think he was only partially working. And I'm thinking, well, in your case, you just put the boat in the water and go.
Yeah.
So it does equate to starting a business. You've got a vision and you want to do it, and you just got to do it.
Well, there's huge parallels, John. I'm glad you shared the story, and it's daunting to me. Kudos to you and your wife and the kids to do that. But you made a decision to do it. Let's go back to decision. But you said an interesting word to me, timing. That's what business is all about.
Yeah.
Startups. Talk about timing in business.
Yeah. So I would say that I think that's kind of a double-edged sword, Steve, to a point, because that can turn into a reason to not launch. It's look at the environment today. There's concerns internationally. There's concerns about a recession in the United States, and you're thinking of starting who knows what, something based on the growth of the economy. And that could become a reason. Well, I think I'll wait 5 years and see if it's a better environment. 5 years later, it's a different situation for you personally. So I would be careful about, thinking too much about timing. I think I'd be taking more into account if there is a timing issue, the financing of the business. Can you get the financing? What kind of financing? Debt right now is very costly, so maybe you would shift to equity, and make sure you can get you can establish yourself with some reasonable likelihood, and then I think pull the trigger.
Yeah. Sounds like timing's a stepping stone. It's not the be all end all. It's your stepping stone to make other decisions.
Yeah.
And doing the research.
Yeah. It's a great question, but I may not have a very clear answer, but that's my view.
No, and it's a good answer because I think people go, "Oh, timing's right now. Let's me and John start XYZ company because XYZ is happening."
Yeah.
But maybe it's a short term, and then you're a year, and you're right. You got to kind of have to massage that timing and do your research is what the big thing is. Give me 3 bullet points when you hear the word servant leader.
Yeah. So I believe a leader nowadays, it's changed. I mean, my goodness, when I was just starting out, the world was what I would call command and control, right? You'd go to work for a big company, and maybe it was Xerox, who knows what it was, and it was top down. And that approach, by and large, doesn't work today. It may work in government, but government is different than our conversation here. And companies that are succeeding and surviving are ones that the leader is really more of a facilitator and trainer and a provider of vision, I think. and they're gleaning they're making the business happen with the not only internal stakeholders but external stakeholders, and it's very I believe they're very fluid. Old model, you had your internal team, they're going to do pretty much everything, and darn right we should do all this, and we have to work extra hours. New model, not so much. A lot of areas, if you're really impacting the life balance, you're probably going to have turnover, right? And so you've got to bring in people from the outside where it's appropriate, which is very common to do that. And then the internal stakeholders, they've got to be very much a part of most all aspects of the business, in my
Right.
view. So you do that. So you mentioned um, servant heart, and to me, it is really understanding at a very deep level the people that you're working with, you're partnered with, and a partner is, and not in the traditional sense of an investor, could be, but it's going to be, by and large, it's going to be internal employees, could be contract employees, the whole thing, and then people you bring in from the outside. You've got to really have their best interest at heart.
And I love what you're saying. I think the lead add to that is the vision, the two partners, the board, the whatever that structure looks like. They all have the same vision of
Yeah,
how they're going to serve. If they don't have that, you're going to have issues.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I want. Go ahead.
Yeah, and the leader needs to sort that out. There's no question about it.
Yeah, I love that because there's a lot of companies don't have a wire of vision. I'm like, how you doing your business? Find that first. But that's okay. We won't get into that. And I asked that question to lead into something you told me before the show in the green room, is that you work off contingency. To me, that's a servant's heart.
Yep.
Explain how you do it and why you do it with your company.
Yeah. So should I give a brief description of what we
Sure.
do?
Yeah.
So, with expense reduction analysts, we are engaging by and large with middle market companies, and uh, we are a consulting business, but with a different model. To your point, we work on 100% contingency. So, when I say that, we go in and we will study various areas in the supply chain, and then we will come back with recommendations for our client, which they can accept or not. And it's all about improving their business. So we're not cutting quality, it's not allowed. We're not bringing in preferred suppliers who would pay us because it's not allowed. We have to actually really be great listeners and then figure out exactly what their quality requirements according to them. And then because of our market knowledge, we can bring in options that will hopefully be a really close fit to what their requirements are in any area. And there is no commodity. Every area of a business, I don't care what industry, is important. There's all kinds of important elements.
I like that. And that's powerful. And what I get from a layman's point of view, contingency means that you work with my company and you won't charge me, or there won't be any payout until certain things happen, correct?
That is correct. Yeah. And in our business, so traditional consultant, I know you know this, Steve, but it's, you come in, you study an area, and this is the very traditional, and I don't want to down talk that part of the world. Plays an important role, but it can become, we at times refer to that as investment in PowerPoint dollars. And given that we can only, for our business, we can only receive remuneration because we actually deliver P&L dollars. It has to
Mm.
happen or we don't get paid. So we have to perform, and we have to go right through full implementation, and then we have to be able to keep everything on track. And the very best engagements are where we create long-term improvement for our clients. So you've got to be on your game every day, and It's not about, it's nothing like the traditional world. It's all performance, which I just love. It makes it so you just never get bored with it.
And I love it too, John, because it reminds me of professional coaches getting
Yeah.
fired all the time. You don't perform, you're a little different. You don't get charged until you do, but it's the same type of thing. And do you think the pressure of performing helps you be a better consultant to your companies?
Oh, definitely. Absolutely. And it becomes this never-ending learning process because there's always, in every single engagement, I learn something new. And so you
Yeah.
could take that and say, God darn it, why didn't I think of that? But you have to train yourself to say, okay, I'm going to get a little better. I'm going to get a little better. And I guess because of that, you just never get bored with it. It makes it really engaging.
Yeah, and you're working as a team, not as an employee. I mean, it's a client owner relationship, but it's more collaborative because of this too, right?
Oh, definitely. No, you're going to exactly the right place. So, we're engaging with the leadership of these middle market companies. They're typically, 50 million to several $100 million companies, can be public, can be private. But that's the group we're initially transacting with. And so they're a very smart, very busy group, right? And not easy to reach. So there's a lot of complexity with that. And then once we're engaged, then really the only way to make it worthwhile for them is if we move the needle for the total enterprise. And you can only make that happen if you're really listening to what they want. And then you're bringing in the specialists in all these areas we work in that can be a really good fit. So I mean, you're exactly right. You've got to understand all elements, or something's going to be off.
Takes a village. I tell people all the time. I just like that phrase. I use it. Takes a village, and yeah, you're getting paid, but there's value to that. If everybody's winning,
Yep, exactly.
doesn't matter what's going out money wise, what you're making. If we're
Yep,
helping each other, serving each other,
yep,
it's winning.
yep. On the
I wanted
bubble.
to go ahead. What'd you say?
I was going to say you're on the bubble every day. So
Oh my God, that's a great phrase. I like that. Very tenuous. Interesting.
yes.
And it sounds like not everybody could do this. This is a certain personality type to do this type of consulting.
To a point, I think that's
Yeah.
true. I think if you're a specialist, it's a different set of skills. So the people that go in and work on the actual, the project we're executing, and then it is, somebody who's in the marketplace transacting with the leadership. They're, neither one is better than the other. They're just different. And
Yeah.
so you do need to select what part of the business you can best serve.
No, that's great. I love that. And I love that you mentioned serve. Well, we come to the end of the time, John. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. I'm writing notes, learning things, which is why I love doing this. So thank you for educating me. I'm sure you educated the listeners as well.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity, Steve. It was fun. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And audience and listeners, we'll see you on the next show. That is the end for today. On this recap of the John Jordan episode, you're going to learn an incredible story where he sailed around the world basically in 1 year with his family, dropped everything, and talking about fear of starting your own business and working in a franchise model and how powerful it could be to work in a franchise model. Learn a lot of lessons with John, learn some great overcoming failures, and learn about how to really serve as a business owner, especially when you start your own business. See you all in the next show. Have an awesome day.